I'm so excited! It's Hacktoberfest! I love Hacktoberfest and I can't wait to bring a ton of exciting new content to you. I don't know if you're aware of this, but my project, Hunters Keepers, that I stream every Sunday on Twitch, is actually a product of last year's Hacktoberfest. I wanted to celebrate Hacktoberfest, but I didn't feel comfortable enough yet with exploring open source, so I just made my own open source repository and started working on a project that I'm very passionate about. So this Hacktoberfest, I'm excited to take it a step further. So what is Hacktoberfest? Hacktoberfest is a month-long celebration of open source software. What you do is you register on DigitalOcean, you submit 4 PRs in GitHub, GitLab, and Bitbucket are not supported. These have to be to open source repos, so your private contributions will not count. It must be between the 1st and the 31st, so during the month of October. The creators of Hacktoberfest want to ensure that this is a positive experience for contributors and for maintainers. So they've required that all PRs be above a certain bar of quality in order to qualify. You can't submit any automated PRs, you can't submit anything disruptive, anything that violates the code of conduct, anything that was unrequested by the PR owner. So for example, a friend of mine was working on his repo and somebody once dropped by and just left him a pull request that was like, hey, I Maven has your project for you. Bye. And he was like, I don't even know what Maven is, and I don't really want this PR, but I don't know what to do with it. So the way that they're handling this, because there can be a lot of different ways for a PR to be disruptive. For example, taking someone else's branch and commits and creating a PR around that, is they've left it up to the maintainers. So after your PR is created, the maintainers have a 7-day window to take a look at your PR, review it, and mark it as either invalid or not mark it at all, which will be considered valid. So you also don't have to create a PR on the 1st and then worry on the 31st that it'll be marked invalid. The other thing that they're requiring is that it can't be to like a text-only repo. So they're going on a repo by repo basis and marking which repos do not qualify for Hacktoberfest. So there are some examples of these, like first contributions in Hacktoberfest have already been marked as invalid, and what'll happen is the entire repository is marked as invalid for contributions. Both of these repos are designed such that you go to the contributing.md, you add your name to the list, and then you create a PR. This is really good. This actually helps give people the muscles that they need to like learn how to do open source development and go through that process the first time in a safe environment. So it really teaches you how to work with a forked repository and create a PR and get it merged. And go through that with somebody who is aware that this is your first contribution and has the empathy and kindness to work with you through it. However, somebody who's going into an open source repository, building a solid feature, building the tests that go along with it, is going to be more valuable to that repository and to open source in general than just a text change. I'd keep an eye out for other text repositories that aren't just about getting your first contribution. So for example, Awesome Developer Streams, I'm in this repository. I really like it. It is basically a list of every single developer who streams on Twitch or YouTube, what they're all about. And it's an awesome list. You should check it out. But this repository, I don't know for certain, but I don't think it would count towards Hacktoberfest just because it is a text-only change. So try and keep your eye out for changes where you're changing the text, or where you're changing text and code. Now, this is a lot of rules and regulations, so let's ask the question, why are we dealing with all of this? And the answer is, there are fabulous prizes. It's a t-shirt. Stickers too. They're cool. It's basic conference swag. I did check out their website and they said that they are supporting Hacktoberfest in all time zones, in all areas. So if you are international and you submit 4 PRs, you should be able to claim a t-shirt based on the information on their website. The first 75,000 contributors who submit 4 PRs between October 1st and October 31st that are quality, lovely PRs will receive a lovely t-shirt, and I'm definitely going to try and be in that boat. I'm gonna have an unboxing Hacktoberfest video. Look for it. All right, so you've been convinced. You've seen these magnificent prizes and you're like, I need another t-shirt for my t-shirt drawer. I need this one. It says Hacktober on it. It's got a big vest and it says 2019 and I love it. And I love stickers. I need them for my laptop. All right, cool. How do you do that? One, you're gonna need to find an open source repo to contribute to. There is a Discord open for Hacktoberfest. I'll link to it down below. They're listing repos, issues, all that sort of stuff. You can also look for issues tagged Hacktober. So there's going to be a bunch of issues out there that are tagged Hacktober. It's a little hard to submit the GitHub query for it because issues isn't really like a selectable option on the all items tag. It is on a per repository basis, but it isn't on the like main search for repos by language and issues list. So I have provided a link to that query in the description below. One thing you might want to do is you might want to say, what's something that's open source that I use on a regular basis, and can I find a way to contribute this month to that repository? This is a celebration of open source. It doesn't have to be... You don't have to just find something to find something. Find something that you love and want to contribute to and explore that. If you can't find something that you're interested in, I have a repo. It's called Hunters Keepers, and it's a Rails app, and it's got a Vue front end, and it's just been Dockerized. So if you have Docker installed, you can just fork my repo, work on it a little bit, and then you can run Docker Compose up, and then boom, you've got access to everything. Isn't that lovely? Now, when you have decided that you want to work on Hunters Keepers or any other open source repository, what you want to start with is reading the contributing.md file if it is present. This contributing.md file is going to help you figure out what the expected code of conduct is. It's going to help you figure out the process. It's going to talk about how to write the specs, the dev environment, all that sort of information. And it's the first stop if you want to be a contributor in a repo. Second step, fork the repository. Make your changes locally, test them, back to that quality point earlier. Then you want to commit your changes, and then you want to push your changes to your forked repo. Create a pull request that points towards that base repo. So the forked repo is your repo. So you're going to create a pull request on your repo, but it's going to point towards the base repo. Next, what you want to do is you want to check your DigitalOcean profile to see your pull request. Now, it's safe to assume that they're going to be pretty overwhelmed by a sudden influx of traffic, so don't be surprised if you don't see it immediately. We're thinking about this from a contributor perspective. We're thinking about going out and finding 4 repos or finding 1 repo and contributing 4 PRs. Let's think about the real heroes of Hacktoberfest, the maintainers who are about to be flooded with a whole series of pull requests and new changes. Now, if you are a maintainer, it is Preptember. September is Preptember. Get your repos ready for new contributors. Let's start with the basics. You need a readme.md. This should include what your project is for, why people use it, and how it's used. Next thing you're going to need is a contributing.md. This should go through, as we mentioned for the maintainers before, your PR process, your dev environment, your testing steps. You also may want to consider adding a code of conduct.md to let people know that it's not okay to be mean on your repo. I'm personally going to be building my code of conduct into my contributing.md so people have a good idea of what's happening, but that's just how I'm approaching it. Another thing you may want to think about including in your contributing.md is other ways to contribute. Documentation and issues are incredibly valuable on an open source repository, and so is creating a basic app. Like if you've got a gem or a framework or something like that, a basic app that shows off an error is huge when it comes to debugging and understanding it. That can be a fantastic way for people who don't necessarily have the time or energy to dig into your PR or to create a PR to actually go through and contribute to your repository. Those aren't going to count for Hacktoberfest, but it's a good idea to include that when you're creating your contributing.md. Now let's talk about issue templates. So GitHub has some default issue templates. You want one for features and you want one for bugs. When you've got a feature versus a bug, you want different information from the person reporting it. If it's a feature, you want to understand why they want it, how helpful it is, and you also want to understand what they think could be done to implement it. Like, do they have any ideas or structures for like how they'd like to see this feature implemented? For a bug, what you really want to know is like, what is your environment? When did you experience this? How did you experience this? Do you have any screenshots? You want it to be very detailed. So try to separate those out into two different ones. GitHub has some default issue templates that you can import when you set this up, so that's going to be really easy and fast for you to do. Next, we're going to talk about pull request templates. So your pull request template should have information in it. It should have a description of changes, any screenshots from what's happening. You want to encourage the people who are submitting pull requests to describe the issue that they are fixing, to describe the changes that they've made to resolve it, and to include any additional details that reviewers may need. And if you don't give them a template to supply that information in, you're going to get 2 or 3 sentences or their own template. This is really going to help your reviewers if you can structure feedback and requests in a consistent way. Okay, so you're a repo maintainer. This stuff just felt basic to you. Let's go to the advanced stuff. Do you have automated CI testing? So continuous integration testing is really helpful when you're working in open source repositories, because what it'll do is it'll run either your entire test suite or a portion of your test suite against the changes that this contributor has made and let you see whether or not anything was broken by that. In open source, oftentimes you don't have a lot of time to QA and test things manually, so having this will really help in ensuring the quality of the application. It also gives people faster feedback too. Instead of someone going in and trying to manually check whether something works, they hear from the spec file, hey, there's an issue and you need to go fix it. When you're evaluating which CI tool you want to use, you want to ask yourself, is this going to run on a forked repo? And will it show results to contributors? If your CI testing doesn't run on forked repos, you're going to have to merge their code into your repository, into some sort of branch, in order to test whether or not those tests are valid. And at that point, it's kind of like, is my CI tool really doing what I need it to do as an open source maintainer? Next is showing results to contributors. If you have to add your contributors to a team, or you have to manually take a screenshot and tell them these are the specs that failed when we ran this, that's going to increase the feedback cycle. So instead of it being, I've uploaded a PR and 20 minutes later I find out that my PR isn't valid, it's going to be, I've uploaded a PR, a maintainer comes around to check it a week later, or a day later, however long your response time is, finds out there's an issue in the tooling, manually communicates to that person, potentially getting their email to add them to the team or letting them know what the issues are, and it just makes that feedback cycle so much longer, and in that period of time, your contributor may have moved on or lost interest. Next, let's talk about review apps. These can be really helpful. Now, when I think review apps, I often think automated review apps, but it doesn't have to be that way. All I'm recommending is that you have a secondary environment that you can take that contributor's code to, push it directly to that, and test it out in a merged production-ish environment. And you can see how it works and you can see how it will deploy. You can think about this as having a staging environment. I think having a staging environment is different though, because normally with a staging environment, you take that person's changes, you merge them into staging, and then those staging changes are merged to master. And you can go in on staging and you can check through that and see if there are any issues, but at that point you've already merged their PR, so the contributor is probably going to be like, okay, my PR has been merged, my job here is done. And if you have to revert that PR, have the contributor recreate the PR, it's just going to be very painful for the contributor, and it's significantly easier to provide them with feedback on that open PR instead. Next, let's talk about protecting your secrets. You should not ever have credentials stored in Git. There are a couple of places where these can sneak in, like for example, if you have a test run and you are recording that test run and replaying it, like for example with VCR, you may find that those credentials were included there. You want to check your stubs, you want to check your entire repository and make sure that you have not stored any of your API keys or credentials in Git. That's going to protect you from other people scrubbing through your repo and trying to find your keys. Now, let's suppose that you have done this and you have committed your keys. What I recommend is you replace that key, move it to an environment file that is either stored locally or stored in your deployment environment, and then rotate your API keys. A lot of people are going to be like, oh, take this commit, merge it into this commit, hide it in the history, all that sort of stuff. No, Just get a new API key. You're supposed to rotate them regularly anyway. Let's talk about the support network that you want around your open source repository. Do you have a reviewers team in GitHub that is automatically tagged when a PR is created? Does your community have a place to talk? Do you have a Discord, a Slack, a forum, a Google group? It doesn't matter what it is, just offer a way for your community members to talk to each other instead of always coming directly to you. Don't be the bottleneck. Do you have moderators for these places where people communicate? You have people around you that want to work on your repository. Reach out to those people. Reach out to the people that you are helping with your open source software and ask them for help. People want to help you. That's what Hacktober is all about. It's about adding things to open source and encouraging more people to be part of this amazing community that is giving their work away for free. That's what open source software is. It's developers who are saying, my work is incredibly expensive, but I'm going to give it away for free so other people have access to it and can use it. And that's a beautiful thing. And other people will respond to that. Reach out to them, talk about building a strong core team and support network for your project. As soon as you start talking about bringing people together and creating a community around your repository, it starts to become time to talk about moderators. You have your code of conduct created, but now it's time to think about, hey, how do I make sure that that code of conduct is enforced and that people are being kind to each other? If you have a safe, healthy environment around your repository, you're going to attract more contributors because more people will feel safe contributing to your repository. Now that we're talking about finding new repo contributors, let's continue on with that subject, right? So if you want to find new repository contributors to help you work on your open source repository, there's a couple of things you can do during Hacktoberfest to elevate attention on it, right? So for example, you can tag issues with Hacktoberfest, right? This is going to be huge. So DigitalOcean has very clearly said on their Hacktoberfest site, look for issues tagged Hacktoberfest. It was earlier in my discussion of Hacktoberfest. You should tag issues that are easy for new contributors who are new to your repository to work on with these tags. Try to make sure those issues are well scoped, well defined, and you've pointed out any places in the code that they're probably going to have to poke into and touch. That can be a huge boon for somebody that's new to your repository, is just having a touch point for here's where to go. Tweet your repo. Use Hacktoberfest and Hacktoberfest 2020 to tag your messages about your repo. Give people a link, give them a call to action. Be like, hey, I'm working on this repository, or I've got this issue up for grabs. People are searching right now for the repositories that they want to work in during Hacktober. And there's going to be some people that pick up on Hacktober later on in the process, so don't stop, Don't like flood your Twitter with like #Hacktoberfest, but do think about like how you can reach out to contributors and connect with them in ways that aren't necessarily on GitHub. Your other option is to do what I do and stream development of your open source repository on Twitch, on YouTube, or anywhere else that you like. So this can really help new contributors because it puts a face on your repository. Contributing to open source is an incredibly intimidating experience the first time around. You don't know who the core team is, you don't know how they're going to react, you don't know how they're going to treat you, and you're stepping into it and you're saying, I'm going to submit this thing, please take a look at it, right? And you are submitting your work. And that's always a very personal thing for people, is like, I created this thing, please tell me what you think. Streaming development of your repo can put a kind face on your repo. And the other thing that it can do is it can show people how your repo works. It shows them the key classes that are involved, how to start it, how to run tests. And then it gives them a place to also ask questions when they're working on it. You'll be going around fixing problems, showing them, here are the classes that do this. Here's what these pieces do. Documentation is great, but nothing competes with like a live teacher. Since we're talking about my streaming, let's talk about what I'm streaming during Hacktoberfest. For the month of Hacktober, every Sunday, I'll be working through one issue or PR live on Twitch. I'm so excited. We'll be visiting a different repository for each Sunday, and what I plan to do afterwards is I plan to take video of myself setting the repository up, the highlights from the stream of me actually creating the PR, and then any review comments or resolutions that were required after the fact, and uploading those as a video. So you'll have 4 different Rails repositories that are open source that have a full guide to creating your first PR. I cannot even express how excited I am to be working on this with y'all. If you'd like me to upload like the full VODs because they are special episodes, please let me know in the comments below. Thank you all so much for watching. Happy hacking. Bye. Tweet your repo. Use the Hacktoberfest and the Hacktoberfest 2020 tweet tag. I've already seen people like, hold on. Tweet your repo. Use the Hacktoberfest and the Hacktoberfest 2020 Twitter tags. No. Tweet your repo. Use hashtag Hacktoberfest or hashtag Hacktoberfest. Nope.